The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday. I'm so excited to be here with you. This has been a really exciting week. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes and hopefully it's translating into what happens here on the show. And again, hopefully some of that's going to translate later on today because we're hoping to get a special guest if there is time today. But a lot of stuff to talk about today. We are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism and how all of us can be more effective, more efficient, dealing with all the things that we have to deal with in a given day and looking at that through the lens of autism. Whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner who's working with an individual who's on the autism spectrum or you yourself are on the spectrum, we hope that we're going to give you some really useful information here so that we all do what we need to do more productively. A lot of what we talk about here is undoubtedly ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. We talk about it because it's the only proven, scientifically proven, effective treatment for autism that is effective for all of our kids, right? There are so many things that we talk about, and believe me, we talk about a lot. I always say we like to look at autism from a 360-degree perspective, all of the different things, because this touches all corners of your life, right? And there are some things that are going to be good for one person that aren't going to be good for another person, right? But the one thing we know about ABA is that it's effective for not only all of our kids on the autism spectrum, but it's effective for all of us. If we want to change behavior and create some behaviors happening more often and some behaviors happening less often, and especially when we want to teach a skill, ABA is unbelievably effective. So we do talk about it a lot, and since it's such a big field, there's so much to know. There's a lot to talk about, but it is by no means the only thing we talk about here. We talk about everything that's on your mind and that you're having to deal with. So I want to remind all of you from the jump here that this show is meant to be interactive. We are only as good as your participation. So please take the opportunity. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us so that you can be a part of the conversation, whether that means giving us a suggestion, giving us a comment of what we could be doing better, giving us some criticism so that we can fix something. Heaven knows, I love that. Or you have a question or something that you saw a question answered and you want to add your 2 cents to it. We love your input. And so there's all these different ways you can get a hold of us. I want to remind everybody that the only way you can watch us live right now is www.autism-live.com. When you go to that site, you see pretty much what you see on the screen there, plus a little box. And it says questions we're answering right now. You put your cursor there, you type away, hit enter, and it magically shows up right here on my screen. So when we have experts here, you can ask them questions. If the expert is not here and you want to ask the question, then it becomes my job to find the expert to match the answer to either get them in the chair here, or if you sent us an email, that they'll email you an answer. It does take a little while, but guess what? It's free. You don't have to log in. Nobody's looking for your credit card information or your address. We're not giving away your information to anybody because we don't even have it. We don't even need it. But we want to be able to hook you up with answers and sometimes more questions. We've talked about that all this week, about sometimes knowing the question to ask, right? If you don't know what question to ask, right? you're kind of dead in the water. And sometimes just hanging out with other people and finding out, wow, I didn't know about that. And now I have a whole new set of questions to ask. That's really liberating and empowering. So we talk about all those things and more. So please do participate. I do always like to remind you at the top of the show that while I will sit here and I'll help to steer the bus, I am not an expert in autism. No, not at all. And I always like to remind you that while I'm very interested and I want to know more about autism, that my job here is I'm here because I'm a mom. My child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he's now 9.5. So 7 years that I have been on this journey. And for some of you, that's a blip in time. Some of you who I have so much respect for have been on this journey for 15 years, 25 years. And I learned from you on a daily basis. And some of you, if you've been on this journey for 5 years, some of you know a great deal more than I do. So let's not kid ourselves about that. But what I do bring to this desk is a passion and a responsibility, because I said very early on, I want to do everything that I can for my child and get as many answers as I can, and then it is my responsibility to turn around and help whoever I can. And I really take that very seriously. So I want to be your conduit, that if you have a question, I do want to find you as much of an answer as is possible to find at this moment in time. Sometimes, what we hear back is we're working on that, and that's okay too, because progress is progress, right? And progress is everything. Okay, we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and figure out not only what does it mean in general terms, but what does this mean to our lives? I don't know about you, but when I started on this journey, I consider myself a fairly intelligent person. I have a master's degree, but not in this. And nor did I plan on having a master's degree in autism, right? It was not on my schedule. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. It was not on my schedule. And then the universe said, no, excuse me, we're gonna put autism on your schedule. In any case, I came into it and I did not know what the jargon terms meant. And even though part of my background is being a teacher, and some of the terms I'd never heard because they hadn't come up in my classroom. So I felt behind the 8 ball, and I was frustrated frequently at meetings and saying, why don't you just explain to me what's happening instead of using all these terms that no one else has ever heard of? And now I firmly believe that it's really important that we, little by little, step by step, make friends with the jargon. It will save us time, it will save us energy, and we will gain a great understanding of what's happening if we, little by little, make friends with the jargon. So today we take another trip into alphabet land and see that our term is A.P.E., which can look confusing if we don't put the dots. APE. What is APE? What does APE have to do with my child on the autism spectrum? But it's A.P.E., and we always like to give you an actual definition and then give you a working definition, a little bit more specific for dealing with a child on the autism spectrum. So our actual definition of A.P.E., it stands for Adaptive Physical Education. It's the implementation and monitoring of a carefully designed child-specific physical education instructional program. It's for a learner with a disability to give the learner the skills necessary for a lifetime of rich leisure, recreation, and sport experiences to enhance physical fitness and wellness. Okay, let's move on to it's not too bad, not a lot of jargon in there, but a little wordy. Let's move on to our working definition. It's individualized therapy to help a child meet specific goals in the area of physical fitness. Now, do you see the progression that we're going through this week? On Monday, our definition was OT, and then on Tuesday it was PT, and now we have APE. So let's talk about these 3 things and how we fit them into different categories. We talked about OT and the fact that you're going to work on a lot of finger skills and hand skills. You're going to work on some gross motor things, and you might work on a bunch of sensory issues with OT. And we see that it's sort of, even though all kids with autism are different, what you will find is OT is one of the first things that they'll readily hand you. That if you have any kind of a funding source, or you go to your school district and you say, my child's having difficulty, they'll do an assessment, but one of the first things that they sort of, it's like on the list of things that they cookie cutter offer to everyone is, oh, well, we have speech and OT for you. I think because almost all, if not all of our kids could benefit from those support services. And I always say to parents, if they're going to give you speech and OT, don't say no to that. Take that. You might want to make sure that they're working on things that are effective for your child, but don't turn down services, right? A lot of times parents think, well, no, I want ABA. Well, get your ABA too, but take the speech and OT. It can work in conjunction with what's happening with the ABA and really be useful. Now, it's very rare that for kids on the autism spectrum that they offer the PT, the physical therapy. And we talked the other day briefly about what's the difference between the PT and the A.P.E. A.P.E is generally when you're in a school setting, they will offer that if the child is struggling to meet the goals that are done in their physical education portion of their standards. So, a child goes to school and all states have different standards that they adopt, and they say, well, here are our language arts standards. And in second grade, a child needs to be able to do this skill, and this skill, and they number them. And they all have physical education goals. That's part of our curriculum in the United States, that all children are expected to go outside and participate in physical activities. It can be recreational. It can be team sports, sometimes it's calisthenics, but they're all expected, and there are different standards. I don't know physical education standards off the top of my head, but imagine that they might say that, a second grader is expected to be able to skip rope 5 times. That might be the goal, one of the many goals for physical education for a second grader. Well, what do you do when you have a child that either A, that's not possible, or B, that's going to be really challenging? Well, when we have an IPE, that individualized educational program for children, we're saying that this child, we're going to have a different set of standards for this child, and it may be that we're going to use the school standards, but we're going to add things into it, and then it becomes the legal responsibility for the staff to teach the child those things. Because when any child enters a public school system, the teacher is legally responsible for teaching the standards. And when you do the IEP, you're just saying, well, we might be doing the standards plus, or we might be doing these instead of the standards because they're more appropriate for this individual child. If you had a child who was in a wheelchair, you would not expect them to have to skip rope 5 times, right? That would not be appropriate. So A.P.E. is when you have taken those physical education standards and said, we need to change those. These aren't appropriate for this child. So this is how we're going to work up to those standards, or these are the standards that we're going to work on instead of those. So it's very specific. There's always an assessment that's done. People don't just come in and randomly say, oh, okay, well, this is what we're going to teach us. They have to do a very specific assessment, decide, okay, this is where this child is, this is where we think we can get them, and do standards based on that, or this is how we need to adapt this for their individual needs. The child who, doesn't have the use of a hand or is very uncoordinated. As an example, when my child was first assessed right before his 3rd birthday, he did not qualify for A.P.E. He was a little bit ahead in some of his physical education, like he had spectacular balance. It's really tragic that I cling to that because it was the one thing that he was ahead, and I just kept reminding him, but he's ahead in this particular area. And it's 7 years later, and I'm still like, he had great balance. I will say that over time, because of all the other things he was catching up on, he got behind in terms of his physical fitness abilities. Not that he wasn't physically fit, but that other kids were out climbing on bars and things, and my child was learning how to talk. So he got a little bit behind on that. So when he was in kindergarten, I asked that he be reevaluated for A.P.E, and they found for him that he was a little bit behind. So he had a couple of years of A.P.E where this wonderful gentleman would come in. One summer, he qualified for swimming, that he got swimming lessons as part of his A.P.E, because it had him being physically active, and they were working on different things and flexibility issues. And throughout the year, they would come in and they would work with him, and they would have a couple of other kids work with him. It actually ended up being good for a lot of different kids. And if he had difficulty with something, sometimes if it was something that required a certain eye coordination, like going in and out of cones and going sideways, he had a hard time with that, which we eventually realized was because he had a visual motor issue. A.P.E became a part of his morning routine right before school, and it was very productive for him. It also, because they included other kids, it became a social time, and it was, as I said, very, very productive. Do all of our kids on the autism spectrum need A.P.E? They don't. But if you see that your child is behind and that they're not able to meet the standards of a typical physical education program for their grade level, this is something that you can ask for either in conjunction with the regular physical education or instead of. We had it in conjunction with, but I've heard of parents doing it in many different ways. And I know some of you have written in before and said that your children have difficulty in the older gymnasiums that don't have a lot of fabric, and the sound is very reactive. And that is certainly something that you could ask to be dealt with an OT, but you could certainly ask for your child to be evaluated for A.P.E, because anything that prevents them from getting to accomplish those standards, then if they have an IEP, there can be something else in its place to help them, because the time has to be productive for them. It can't just be one size fits all, and they can't have an expectation that all of our kids are just going to be able to do that. That's what your IEP gives you the right to, is to have specialized child-specific instruction so that your child is making progress, the key to everything, right? Okay, so A.P.E, different than P.T. P.T. is going to be more when your child is having specific issues. It's probably not something that's going to be during school hours. P.T. is probably not going to work on recreational stuff, but when your child is having gross motor specific issues that really are troublesome, problematic, that's when you would do the P.T. They all kind of overlap, but it starts to make sense when you see it in the school setting. Okay, moving on, we always have a question for you, question of the day. Our question today was, how old was your child when you were able to start ABA? Now, of course, there are some of you who have not been able to start ABA yet. And please write in and tell me your frustration about that, because you know I'm always open to that. And if you have not, your child has not had the benefit of any ABA, I would hope that you would be frustrated. Not that I hope that you are frustrated, but I would expect that you would be, because that would be frustrating. But one of the main reasons why I want to point this out is that so many of you write in and say how badly you feel that your child didn't start earlier. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up to the point and we think we're the only ones who didn't get the information. And I want you all to see what a wide range there is, that it's never too late. There is never a moment that's too late. I know of at least one example of somebody who was in their 40s, who had been diagnosed later in life on the autism spectrum, very productive, happy, professional person, but there were some aspects of their life that just they wanted to work on. And so that they said, I'm ready. I would like some ABA, so that I can very effectively change some of the things that I'm doing. By the way, we can all do that, right? You don't have to be on the spectrum to say, this part of my life, I wish I was better at, and start ABA. ABA is used with people from very early ages up 99-year-old. They use the techniques of ABA in nursing homes frequently. So you cannot be too old. And I do want you guys to see. So please write in. You can help somebody by saying how old your child was. For me to say, well, my child was just past his 3rd birthday, then if there's somebody who is saying, oh, well, I don't know if I need to find this out now. Oh, really? 3? Somebody started at 3. You can start at 3. Great. So for somebody else to write in and say, my child started at 18 months, think of how many people you'll inform about how early you can start. And for those of you who have older children who are starting at 15 and 16 and 22, take ownership of that and write in so that other people can see that, and you can see that you are not alone, and it's okay. We've said all week long, our topic of the week, we always have a topic of the week, and our topic this week is early intervention. But I've said to you all week long, when we say early, let's put equals now. Early is now. Early, yeah, I know. We're all going to kick ourselves. I kick myself that my child didn't start at 2.5 when he was diagnosed. I kick myself that I didn't get him diagnosed earlier. But I know many of you that are out there that are kicking yourself because your child didn't start till they were 6, or your child is 10 and you're just now starting. And I would love to tell you don't kick yourself. And I know I still kick myself. So I don't walk that talk. But I will say this. Kick yourself as long as you need to kick yourself, but make sure that you're walking while you're kicking yourself, because what happens, I don't know for you, but for me, sometimes I'm so busy kicking myself, I'm not taking action. I have to own that. There have been a lot of things lately that I've been saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and I've not been doing them. So I also need to be kicked and moved. And we can hold hands together on that and say, all right, let's do this together. But there are more things that we can do for our kids. So let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So some of the different things that we have going on today, really very exciting show today for you. Of course, we have the myth of the day today that I'm very excited about. We have a school tip. And we have Ashley Colis who's going to be joining us in just a little while. We've had her on the show a couple of times before, and she's just a wealth of good information. And I'm really excited about the topic. It's very timely for me. And hopefully, we will have an extra special guest at some point during the show. I've mentioned all week long that our regulars, because normally we would have Angela Persicki with us today, who's a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst, but she and so many of our other regulars on the show are not available this week because they have been in a really fabulous training upstairs that I have been trying to get my foot in the door just to look and see and hear what's going on. But I did mention at the beginning of the week that we might have opportunity, and we're hopeful that at some point during today's show or tomorrow's show that we're going to be able to get Dr. Lisa Coyne out of that training for a few minutes and here on the show and to talk to us about what the training is, what they're doing, because it's a very exciting subject. We talk about it a lot with Evelyn Gould when she's with us, ACT, acceptance, commitment, therapy, and how powerful it can be for individuals who are on the spectrum and for parents of individuals who are on the spectrum. And I'm very excited about the fact that a lot of the people that are here on the show are getting trained in it so that they can come in and talk about it with us in the coming weeks. But to hear it directly from the person who's doing the training, Dr. Lisa Coyne, would be an extra. So we'll all keep our fingers crossed that there'll be a few minutes that she can give us today or tomorrow. And if she has time, we will stop everything else to have her here on the show. But in any case, lots of very exciting stuff going on here. And I have to tell you, because we were able to interview Temple Grandin a couple of weeks ago. I guess it's been over a month now. It seems like it was yesterday. And I mentioned after we met with her that Temple was going to be joining us on a semi-regular basis to answer more of your questions. And very excited that Temple is going to be joining us on Monday morning. It won't be during the live show, but we will air it during the live show. She's going to be joining us via phone to answer more of your questions. So I'm going to put it out to you today to be letting us know we still have lots of questions that didn't get answered from before, but we'll take more. So feel free on our Facebook to be writing in those questions, and we have some fun stuff happening with that as well tomorrow because we have a big announcement that's coming on Monday. So all of that and more, lots and lots to cover. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back, so stick with us.
welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way.
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course. Here we go.
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half. And what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm going to just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we're using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're going to be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm going to take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm going to do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of felt and we're going to cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm going to fold it in half and I'm just going to cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry if it's too big. You can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm going to glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We got to help him out with that. So what I'm going to do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm going to peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there and one there. And then I'm also going to put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him. I'm alive! Alive! I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye!
Bye! And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autismlive.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. And so we all said our little hopeful prayers, and Dr. Lisa Coyne is with us. And I thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's been very exciting having you here in the building. And now that I have you all to myself for a few minutes, I want you to tell our viewers, you wear a lot of different hats. You do a lot of different things. So let's go through some of the different titles that you hold.
Okay, so I'm here, I guess, because I work with early childhood intervention, and I am also an acceptance and commitment therapy trainer, which
Yes.
means that I've gone through sort of a vetting process. I've learned how to teach this approach to behavior, and I do that. And I'm also an associate professor at Suffolk University and the director of the Early Childhood Research Clinic and the New England Institute. Too many hats.
It's a lot of hats,
Too many hats.
And they're great hats. As an autism parent, I love your hats. Your hats are cool, and I welcome them here to our show. So let's talk a little bit about ACT and what that is and why it's so wonderful for autism parents.
Well, okay. So all parents have a lot of struggles, and especially parents with kids with autism.
Yeah.
And I actually have my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. We have my nephew, Andrew, who lives in Ireland, is an autistic child. He's got autism. And just watching him grow up and watching the process of first, what is this going on? Is there something wrong? And watching them kind of reevaluate, like, oh my goodness, what help does he need? And then struggle to kind of meet all of those needs. They have other children as well, so like the emotional drain, the physical drain of taking care of all of those things, the financial drain, the need to advocate, to be the child's strongest advocate. So we feel, and that there's so many needs for families with autism. They need support.
Yeah.
They need support.
Yeah. Oh, she's singing our song, isn't she, ladies and gentlemen? You are singing our song. Yeah. Because a lot of the interventions, rightly so, are based on the child.
Exactly.
And that's great.
Exactly.
But there's a whole other thing that's
What about
going
the
on.
parent?
And you know how you guys always say that, but what about the rest of us? And what about my family? And what about my relationships? And the fact that I got to put food on the table.
Right.
I got to work a job while all this stuff is going on. So this is why we've been so excited. And she's here.
We are the what about the parents people.
Right. Yes. The what about the parents people. Great.
Because we think, it's amazing. I'm so honored to work with families who are raising children with autism, because very often, almost all the time, you see parents putting their child before themselves.
Yeah.
So ACT is an approach that helps us learn different ways of coping with all of those challenging thoughts and feelings that can come up in life generally, and also especially in the context of raising a child with autism.
Yeah, you see, I welled up.
Yeah, I do.
Because, I know this firsthand, and I know that we all need this. We all need you, and we're so thrilled that you're here. So you have been here all week long with a team, and training. Who are you training, and what are you training them for?
So we are training most of the senior level staff here actually in what ACT is. So they're getting a taste of it. We're actually walking them through as though they were, they're participants in our workshop. So they're on one hand learning to be group leaders so that they can train their staff, but they're also walking through it themselves.
That's
and
awesome.
It's been, and I have to say, just to give CARD a plug, this is an amazing organization. We have my heart is just full. They're just so amazing and generous people and giving of themselves. So you guys got a great, thing going on.
And I should clarify too, because we keep saying the people here, and we're talking about the Center for Autism and Related Disorders because we're in their headquarters, and I'm big fans of them too, because they gave me back my child. So and thrilling. What I notice about them is that they're always willing to learn more things.
That's it, exactly. So they're very open.
Yeah.
And one of the things that excites them, I think, the most is learning this so that they can also go and help and deliver this intervention to parents.
Yeah.
To help them when they are feeling low, when they're feeling like it's too much.
Because that's the whole point of this.
That's the whole point.
Is for them to learn these techniques so that they can be an additional resource for the parents.
Right.
And deal in a way that's really effective and be trained. And so,
and you know what? I have a great metaphor for this, actually.
Okay, good.
So there's a story of a Zen master and his student, and his student is sort of struggling with lots of things. And so the Zen master says, okay, I want you to try something. I want you to take a tablespoon of salt and put it in a glass and take a drink. And so the student does, and the Zen master said, so how was that? And he said, really bitter, really didn't like it, kind of unpleasant. And the Zen master said, okay. And then he said, let's take a walk. And he took him to a lake. And he said, now I want you to take this tablespoon of salt and I want you to put it in a lake and take a drink. And he said, so what did you notice? And he said, the water's sweet and clear, but there's still salt in it. And that's sort of what ACT is about. The pain of life, or the pain of dealing with this, is going to stay.
Yeah.
There's not much we can do. It's a struggle. It's always going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard, and people are going to be pushed beyond what they think they can do. However, if we can get a little room around that and make life just a little bit bigger, it's easier. You know,
it's a wonderful thing, and we do have opportunity. I was mentioning before that we have Evelyn Gould, who is a big fan of yours.
I'm a big fan of hers.
Well, there we go. And Evelyn shares with us on Tuesday. She comes in and we do a segment called Making Room with Evelyn, because it's all about making room. And I've been excited just to know her in my life, because so much, and I've shared this with her before, as an autism parent, when I would go and say, you know, I'm feeling stressed or I'm having this symptom or whatever, and the doctor goes, here's the prescription for Valium. Go, truly, that's what autism parents get. And I would go, how am I supposed to deal with everything my child's going through if I'm fuzzed out on Valium? How is that going to work? And Evelyn never asks me to squash my feelings. She asks me to acknowledge them, and then we came up with this making space, because she uses that expression a lot about that's not the only thing that's happening, but it is happening. Let's not. So is that where the acceptance and the acceptance commitment comes from? Accepting what is.
Yeah.
And then what's the commitment part? Making a commitment to look at the whole thing?
So it's the commitment part is this. You know, if I were to ask you now, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would you want to say your life would be about?
Oh, gosh. On a Thursday, you're going to go there with me already? I'm welling up, because then I have a little bit of an inner battle, because I would want to, obviously I would want to be remembered as a really good mom.
Me too. I totally get that. So ACT is about contacting that just the same way you're contacting it right now.
I'm emotional.
Feeling it. And taking steps toward that. You know, even in the presence of things that are really hard.
Yes.
And ACT is about making room in that way. And that's the commitment part.
The commitment to that. Yeah. Oh, well, and we all need this, don't we? Yeah. So how long can you stay?
I'm moving in.
I have a seat for you here. I'll get a bed for you, a nice duvet. We'll put up curtains. That's wonderful. And for more of our professionals that are trained in all the behavior to help our children to be aware of what it's like and to be able to be helpful to us, that's a huge gift that you give us.
Thank you.
What a wonderful thing.
I feel really grateful for learning it myself, and I use it in my own life as well, and all of the things that I teach and that we as a team teach. I have two great colleagues here.
Yes.
Doug Long and Tom Zabo, who have been helping me, and they're actually upstairs presenting now, so I could sneak off.
Which is great. We thank them for that. And if we have the opportunity, we want to squeeze them in too, because I would love to talk to them too. Okay, so thrilled that you're here and thrilled that you're training the CARD staff, but for parents who are watching who hear this and go, okay, I need to know more about this, what different directions do you want to point them into? What books would you recommend, and other places that they can ask for this therapy depending on where they are in the world?
You can look at the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science website, which is a lot of resources. There's a lot of great books. I actually have a parenting book as well that I wrote. It's called The Joy of Parenting. It's for kids who are 2 to 6. It's not specific to autism, but if they want to get a taste of the intervention and what it might look like, they could take that. A great book to start with, to just kind of learn for yourself. You know, what is this? What are we talking about here? Is The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. It's not very expensive. It's probably maybe $12 or $15. You can get it on Amazon in paperback, or you can get it on your Kindle.
And he is actually a parent of a child on the spectrum, correct?
He is a parent of a child on the spectrum. And actually, another book that he wrote, which I really like also, is The Reality Slap, in which he talks a little bit about the experience of learning that his son also has autistic spectrum disorder. So those are 3 great places, I think, to start.
Okay, tell me the website again to go to.
The website, it's called, I Googled the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science.
Contextual Behavioral Science. Okay, that's a mouthful.
Fancy, but still great website.
Okay, great. And then if people are in the Boston area, can they connect
contact
with?
me. You can find me on the Suffolk website, and they can also find me on that website that I mentioned previously as an ACT trainer. There's a list of ACT trainers. Not all of them work with individuals who are parents or with children who are autistic, but some of us do. And they can feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to talk.
And this is something that works really well in conjunction with ABA.
Yes.
There's nothing counterintuitive about it.
No, it's highly linked with ABA. As a matter of fact, it's based on behavioral principles itself.
Okay. So fabulous. I thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
It's
so nice to meet you too. I'm going to kidnap her and and I'm going to keep her here. But hopefully we'll get to meet your colleagues as well today or tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here with us. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Ashley Colis. So stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. The fun just continues here. Our very special guest in the studio right now is Ashley Colis. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again. I'm excited. It's my
Yeah, and Ashley comes in and brings us exciting things whenever she comes in. The first time you came in, you talked about babysitting and how to put people through a questionnaire and what kinds of things to ask for and how to get them ready to babysit for you. Very useful information, by the way. And then you came in with a really cool app the second time. Right. And we're going to talk about another really cool thing having to do with iPads in a couple of minutes. But I want to start out talking with you today because 3 times in the last week I've been in conversations with parents of kids who are completely neurotypical, and they've been talking to me about behaviors that their kids have just started doing out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And at least in 2 of the conversations, people were like, you work with behavior people, right? and one of them, they just were mentioning, saying, we're going through a phase. And one of I was sitting and listening to it and thinking, okay, but ABA is not just for kids on the autism spectrum. And so I wanted to take a minute with Ashley to talk about how ABA can be used and what, for parents who don't have kids on the autism spectrum, when they're having those challenging behaviors, what options are open to people to change those behaviors that are similar to what we do with kids with autism.
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot too.
I'm sure.
And I encounter a lot when I have friends that have kids and they're going through a phase.
Right.
And it can be a phase, but usually that's marked by, them starting the behavior and parents trying a bunch of stuff until they find something that works and then the phase is over.
Right. Right.
And so this happens a lot with sibling rivalry and just basic defiance and talking back. I mean, that's common and it's typical. I did it. I don't know if you did it.
Of course I did.
But there are common mistakes or missteps that we have as parents or caregivers, and that's sometimes punishing good behaviors.
Yes.
Or not disciplining bad behaviors.
Right.
Or giving reinforcement or rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah.
Or not rewarding good behavior at all.
Yes.
So we kind of just let it go because that's our expectation.
Yeah.
And so it's important to remember that reinforcement for the good behavior is going to be the foundation for getting that to happen more often.
Absolutely. We've had, and in fact, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing we had a bunch of questions that have come in that we haven't gotten to yet this week about compliance. Mm-hmm. And it all, as you were talking about listing all those different kinds of things, I was thinking, it kind of all is in the neighborhood of compliance, the talking back and, not listening and all the different things that kids do.
Right.
And I always like to say here, when you have compliance, you have everything.
Yeah, you do.
It's because compliance, it's the best of times, the worst of times. If you don't have it, it's the worst of times. Mm-hmm. If you do have it, it's the best of times. And we get to enjoy our children when we have compliance.
That's true.
So talking about all those different things about the consequences and the reinforcement and, consistency, I'm guessing, is key.
Consistency is key, and consistency is the hardest part for parents of typical children, parents of children on the spectrum, parents of children with ADHD, with Downs, whatever type of child you have.
Yes.
Consistency is really important.
And I want to interrupt you here for a second and say that this is one of those times when you understand why sometimes people want to be single parents. Because as much as you like being married to your spouse, when consistency is key and you have 2 different people and they deal with the world in 2 different ways, it's fodder for disaster.
Right. And Another thing that we can fall into, another pitfall, is not being a united front in front of our kids. And we're modeling some types of behaviors, like shouting at your spouse is in front of the child, or even if the child can hear it, which we all have done at some point probably, can be a model for that type of behavior. They learn a lot of stuff from us.
Yeah.
The first time you hear, a bad word, you're like, oh no, I did let that slip one day in the car. But that's okay. We just have to really look at behaviors that we see. We have to find out whether or not, when I'm talking about this from a behaviorist coming in or someone coming in to help a family, we have to find out how important this is for the family.
Yes.
I've seen families where the child is experiencing, the family's going through some challenging behaviors with a child, but the parents are on the verge of divorce. And this is a typical family. And you see Super Nanny, and I think there's a new American version of that.
Yes.
But that's, it happens a lot.
Yeah,
so
it does.
That's a situation where that's important, and you need to have someone skilled coming in to help.
So let's talk about, though, for a parent who doesn't have a child on the autism spectrum, when they say, okay, my child's behavior is causing issues in my life and issues in the family's life, what can they do at that point? Because they're not going to go and have their child diagnosed, right? No. They're going to call and say, okay, I need to have my child looked at for autism. That's not where they're at. Who do they want to call super nanny? Who do they call?
You know, schools have a lot of resources, and a lot of schools have access to school psychologists that are more and more these days also trained in ABA. Yes. One of our lovely people here is on that track to be a behavior analyst and a school psychologist, which is an amazing blend.
We can't wait, and I'm going to throw a party for the school that gets her, because they're going to be so lucky.
She needs to be shared. I told her she needs to be a regional.
The traveling. Yes, exactly.
So, you know, getting help from school is important. Teachers are probably seeing some of the behaviors as well.
Yeah.
Also, behavioral resources are available. There are psychologists who have experience in behavior problems, and behavior analysts can definitely help out.
So you could just call a BCBA.
You could.
And say, you know, you don't have to have a child on the autism spectrum. And when we normally here on the show say, if you're experiencing something and you want to target a behavior, and you can go to the BACB.com, put in your zip code and say how many miles you're willing to look, and that then you need to go through and call people and say, do you have experience with autism?
Right.
Can we just leave that phase out if you don't have a child on the autism spectrum?
Well, you're going to have to find someone who is going to be able to practice within that level of competency. So they might not have so much experience with families of typical children, or they might not have... they might have experience in just maybe eating disorders or substance. So you want to make sure that you find someone who has some experience.
Okay.
And a center like ours at CARD is a blend of people with so many different backgrounds, and they've had so much experience. And even Dr. Garcia is amazing.
Who's in the assessment department.
And she has had a lot of experience. So calling up a group of like a center or something like that would probably be your best option.
And if somebody, for instance, were to say, okay, I'm having a problem with my child who is tantruming, and I see what these people with autism are doing. I don't want the whole 40-hour-a-week thing, but I want to target this behavior. They could, for instance, call the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and contract to have a BCBA do an FBA and write a behavior intervention plan for just one behavior for a child, and you don't have to be on the spectrum, right?
Potentially.
They would do that.
It depends on what the situation is. And you also, if you're having a chronic problem or something, I have a child that I know that he gets very upset, and his anger escalates to the point where he will break things, and he's causing a lot of property damage in the home, and it's starting to happen at school. So that's something where Mom told me recently that she's taking him to the pediatrician, I think, any day now, to have him kind of assess what's going on, check that everything's okay, is everything okay in his body, because he is a typical child, but it's escalating to the point where we need to make sure we rule other things out first.
And that's a great tip too, because sometimes I know I went to the doctor the other day and they're evaluating me for food allergies because I'm having some issues, and sometimes something like that can throw your whole day off. And and I'm an adult and I can language things and say I'm not feeling well. A child can't. Even a typical child is not going to sit there and say, I don't think my stomach is supposed to feel this way.
Right, exactly.
They don't know. They that's how their stomach feels, so they don't know. And I forget that on a regular basis. But okay, so checking out to make sure that medically everything is okay.
Yep, ruling out other potential issues. Also talking to the teacher, finding out what's going on at school. We really want to understand the function.
Right.
And we want to understand what's motivating our child in this situation. What's going to motivate our child also for good behavior.
Yeah.
So figuring all those things out. And sometimes, there are plenty of people who are trained to do that.
Yes.
And so finding resources, but making sure that you rule things out first and find out what's going on at school. Is there a bully at school?
Yeah.
Some of those things, we might think, oh, well, my child's just not listening to me, but it could be something that's going on.
Absolutely.
Outside of the home, we can't be with them all the time.
Right.
So,
and the truth is, if you hire a BCBA to come in, they're going to want to ask questions.
Right.
And then they're going to want to observe. But you can spend less money and less time if you've taken notes and say, I've observed, like we always talk about here with autism parents, taking the piece of paper and folding it 3 times and figuring out what happened before the behavior, what happened during the behavior, and what the consequence with the behavior was, and dating it and putting the time so that you can start to see a pattern. If you can have the BCBA come in and say, this happens every time he, right after snack, then it's going to help the BCBA get at the issue that much quicker.
And that's exactly what they're going to ask you. So if you can do your homework before and come in with something like that, when the BCBA consults with the family, they will have a much better picture of those snapshots of the antecedent and the behavior and the consequence, so that we can figure out what's going on and what's appropriate. Do we need to offer some parent support in the form of maybe training, and do we need to do an FBA, and what the options are.
And just to remind everybody, the FBA is the functional behavior assessment, figuring out what the paycheck is for the behavior, because there's always a paycheck. But I was saying to somebody last night, I was saying, everybody thinks the super nanny is so far away and so removed. They go, I don't want to be on a TV show, but I wish I could have the super nanny come to my house for a week and talk to my spouse and I and figure out what's going on. But the truth of the matter is, you can. You really can.
And I would like to point out that she's good. There are some things I see her do, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty good.
There's a lot of ABA-based things.
But what she does, I think, her main role is to support consistency.
Yes, that's really the core of it.
To support the mom and okay, I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to let them out of the timeout until the timer goes off, or I'm not going to give them this thing they're asking for when they're screaming and, flailing around on the carpet.
Right.
And sometimes that support is what you need to get through that first part. Maybe an extinction burst or...
And also sitting there and saying, I'm not going to let mom give in the timeout, and then when mom doesn't give in on the timeout, I'm not going to let dad come in an hour later and give in on the timeout. Right. That level of and sometimes you need a third person to come in so that it doesn't become the battle between the two of you.
And it's how you did a good job. As parents, it's so hard. There's no one giving you a sticker or giving you the A+ or patting you on the back all the time. Yes. Especially if you're maybe at odds with your spouse.
Yes.
So sometimes having someone to come in and say, I know that was really hard for you, and you really put yourself out there going through that, and you did an amazing job. It's good to hear.
It is good to hear. It's great advice. We actually have something that you told me about this morning that we're going to talk about that's a really great product, but we're going to take a break first and come back and talk about the thing that when you get an iPad for your child, the thing that's going to make sure that the iPad's around for a while. So stick with us, more with Ashley Colis right after these messages. Hi, we're here with Temple Grandin, and we're going to be asking her some of your questions that you guys have written into us. First of all, Temple, I want to thank you for being with us here today.
It's good to be here.
This is a question that I want to know. When you went to the Emmys and you went to all these different events and you were there in your wonderful shirt, was there anybody who tried to talk you into wearing something else, or did they just understand that you needed to be who you were?
Well, I think being eccentric is just fine. I dressed eccentric at the Emmys. Eccentric's fine. Being a filthy slob is not fine. Let's look at the latest Mars rover. You got the Mohawk guy that's ahead of the expedition. You got the Elvis guy that figured out how to land on the moon, and he wears Elvis outfits. I think that's just fine. But you can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob. That's the thing where draw the line. Eccentric's fine. I remember a guy who was on the spectrum, and he taught astronomy at a local college. And he had beautiful astronomy T-shirts, and he had long hair with a ponytail this long. And I said to him, don't let anybody cut your ponytail off. Wear it with pride, but it must be washed and it must be clean.
There you
and
go.
Neat.
Love it. Did they try to talk you into wearing a dress, or they?
Oh no, nobody knew I would wear a dress. I got too much of a farmer tan and would just look just terrible. No, you're not going to get me in an evening gown. I did buy some new black pants. I'm going to wear it tonight.
Well, I thought you looked great.
I want to let you know about the shirt award of the Emmys.
Yeah.
That was a Ralph Lauren shirt. Okay, fashion snobs. And that was a gift from my sister for Christmas.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now is Ashley Colis. And Ashley's going to be coming and joining us on a regular basis now. And I'm really excited about this because Ashley you are really connected, and you're somebody who's done extensive experience as a therapist. So she's worked with children in the home, and you know a lot of stuff that's good, and it really comes down to good stuff. And we were just talking about, we think we're going to call this segment "Good Stuff with Ashley." And I don't know about you guys, but I love to hear about when something works. Instead of having to figure it out and do all the research, I love it when somebody can say, this is the thing that works. So, and you tend to know more of those things than anybody else. I think you do really good research, and you see how it works. So we're thrilled to have you be doing this, and you have something to share with us today that's good stuff.
It is. I'm excited about it. And I did a lot of research. iPads are so popular.
Yes.
And we have our app that's just come out.
Yes.
And we really need something sturdy that's going to protect our lovely iPads from
an investment.
Yeah, the reality that is, the sandbox and the toilet and all those places that it can end up besides just in your child's lap.
Yes.
So there's an amazing product called by LifeProof, and it's called the Nuud.
The Nuud.
Interesting name.
And there it is. We're showing a picture of it here. And tell us why this is so superior.
Well, the screen that goes over to protect the touch screen is really thin, and I think that's where the Nuud name came from, excuse me, is that it's almost like there's nothing on it.
Okay, great.
But it has a protective case around it, which is not very bulky, especially in comparison to some of the other ones. And you can submerge your iPad in an aquarium or some kind of body of water, bathtub. Imagine what's in your house and think about your iPad in there, and it's not going to be ruined. Wow. And their website's pretty cool. It shows it being dropped from a ladder, and it's pretty much the best case that you're going to get right now.
Wow.
For your iPad, and it's pretty safe.
Absolutely incredible, because we're wanting to put iPads into children's hands, and especially children who are on the autism spectrum. We're seeing a big push that there are all these great apps, and it's a way that we can make our ABA dollars go further. This is very exciting to all of us, and yet you're putting this expensive piece, and I understand it's a lot less expensive than some other things, but it's still expensive. When you're watching every dollar, it's expensive. And you're putting this expensive thing into your child's hands who sometimes engages in challenging behavior. And, there's some trepidation that comes there. And even I'm aware of one family that worked really hard to get their iPad for their child who is nonverbal, sent him to school with it, and it came home cracked. Right. And the mom said, how can this be? We do everything that we can, but you can't control other kids.
No,
and you can't control an aide who has slippery fingers and draw. It's a huge, huge concern. So this Nuud, what a great, great thing.
Yeah, it is. And my fiance travels a lot, and he has a lot of electronics. He's into it. So it's not just for kids.
Yes.
He puts everything in this bag, and it's like bulging by the end with the laptop and the iPad. But this case is a really good thing for him. He might get it for a birthday or something.
We're not saying.
We're not going to say.
It could be a surprise.
Because he has so much stuff in there, and his bag is getting tossed around, not always by him, but people, throwing it out of the bin, moving it over. When he checks his bag, it's getting knocked around, and he's had laptops that have just been almost bent completely.
Oh my goodness.
So it's for all types of people.
Okay.
And our typical kids are eating candy and drinking their Capri Sun over their iPad, and then the button doesn't work anymore before you know it.
Yeah.
So it's really important to protect our things, and this is a really good product, and I recommend going to the website and checking it out.
Okay.
And there are a couple other
Do we know
good
price
ones.
point on it?
I think it's a little bit under $100, but it's a good investment if it's like a warranty. So and I think that they are warranted actually.
Okay. So this is by LifeProof. So lifeproof.com. Emily's showing it to them right now. I know I need to check this out. Last night I got my phone back, and it had this big crusted smear on it that I couldn't make anything work on it. And he's a little bit older, and he doesn't have the challenging behavior. I can't even imagine what we would have done early on without that.
Right.
And it does cushion it.
It does.
Okay.
And you can still use the screen. Some of these other ones, the screen is really thick that goes over the touch screen, and it changes the sensitivity of the touch screen.
Right, we don't
and
want
it's
that.
frustrating, and we don't want to frustrate our kids.
Right, because one of the great things about it is it's so reinforcing.
Right.
They touch it and something
You
happens.
take that away, it's just not as cool.
Okay, so the Nuud.
Yeah.
All right, very exciting. And you'll be back next week with
more good stuff.
More good stuff with Ashley. Thank you so much. Have a
Thanks for
great
having
weekend.
me.
Thank you. We're going to take a break, and as we go to break, we're a little bit late, but we're going to go to the A Word so that you can check out. This is the wonderful documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following Jack Riley. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and you're seeing him at about 9 months into therapy. Take a look at what's up with Jack Riley. This is the A Word.
He's a happy, fun kid, and he was a happy, fun kid when he was diagnosed too, and I don't think at the time we really understood that you can be happy, fun, and still have autism. He's sort of giving us a hint that we don't need to worry so much, that he'll conquer whatever it is that he's dealing with.
That could be interesting. Oh no, the deck fell. You're okay.
It's okay, buddy. Daddy will hold it. Let's try again. Try again.
I know that it's very important to him, whether he knows it or not, that he has both of us in his corner. So for the dads, that's all I would say, is be in his corner, do the best you can, and if you screw up, just be involved. You're going to make mistakes, but just be involved. It's not going to go away, and quite frankly, you're way more valuable to helping him than you think you are in the beginning. There were times I thought I'm useless, and that's gone away.
He does when he sees doors and books. Knock, knock, knock. Ding dong, ding dong. Hello. So, hello, don't you? Hello. Who is it?
Hello. Good night, friends. I'm sleepy too. Wake up, but I'm sleepy. Wake up.
He's just really clever now. More creative when he's playing. He solves little issues or problems that get in his way, and he just smiles a lot while he's doing it, so we think he's enjoying it.
Yeah, you also bubble to top.
Oh my God! Oh my goodness, that was so impressive. Good job. We added a new program, Gaining Attention, because we've been noticing that he wants our attention, but he'll like throw things or doesn't know appropriately how to get your attention. So we're going to be teaching him to tap our shoulder as well as call our name when he wants our attention.
Twice.
This is Jessica's first attempt in teaching Jack Riley how to gain attention. At first, Jessica tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the entire way so he can practice and learn an appropriate way to gain attention.
Look, do you want the fire truck? Look, that's what I have. Do you want it? Yes. Okay, do this, look. Say Jessica! Good job, try again, ready? Ready? Say Jessica! Say Jessica! Oh, what do you want? Oh, okay, here you go. There you go. Okay, do this.
As Jack Riley learns how to gain attention, Jessica's prompts will fade until he does it independently.
You want to try again?
Try again.
Okay. Yes? Yes? What do you want? What do you want? Oh, there you go. That was very good, Jack. Yes? Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's good, mister. You're getting better at that. And we also added a program called Inhibition, when mom or dad are doing things like getting the mail or getting things from the car. He's had episodes where he'll just run.
Wait.
Wait.
Stop. Wait. No, wait. Stop.
If this is as bad as it gets, and we've caught it, then we're great. I think what I didn't realize is that there's always going to be new things that he's going to encounter. There's always going to be new behaviors that he discovers, and that's part of being a kid, as well as the autism.
No!
Stop!
Thank you.
This way. Go.
We can go in this.
It's really a lovely documentary. That's the A Word, and you can be watching them on their very own YouTube channel. We were talking before with Ashley Colis about sometimes, all the time, consistency is an issue, and sometimes it's really hard, especially when you have multiple people interacting with your child, which is almost everyone. I did say, this is the one moment in time when somebody goes, oh, it's a little bit easier being a single parent because consistency is a little bit easier to get to. Of course, you're more exhausted. But I have had parents say before it just got easier when I was the only person who had to deal with it. Now, hopefully it doesn't come to that, right? And especially hopefully it doesn't come to that because of the child's behavior. And we were talking about things that you can do. But it's so key, if you do have the benefit of ABA therapy and you do have the benefit of therapists that are coming into the home, to work with both parents. Somebody made a comment to me the other day about because of the big story that came out this week that was on our local KTLA about the boy who recovered from autism, and there have been a lot of people talking about it and the different issues, and people were pointing out that it is infinitely easier than it was at the time that this family had to go through treatment because there is more funding available to more people. That doesn't mean that it's easier for everyone, and I pointed out, it still is a financial hardship. Even when insurance is covering the therapy, it is still a financial hardship because the parents aren't as available to work as many hours as they did before. So I think we want to acknowledge that and how important it is to have the parents be a part of the program. Does that mean they need to be there for the full 40 hours? No, it really doesn't. Some funding sources require it, but is it absolutely essential? No. It is essential for parents to be a part. And you notice that with this little boy, sometimes they go for a walk and sometimes it's with mom. And sometimes they go for a walk and it's with dad. And sometimes they go for a walk and it's mom and dad. That's job getting done, right? Is that super duper difficult? Oh, you betcha. And everybody finds their way of making this thing work. And we're actually going to talk more about that when we get to the myth of the day. But I want to tell you what's optimal first, and then we'll talk about how you get to it, right? So what's optimal is making sure that we get consistency. And the only way we're going to get consistency is if everybody who has a share in taking care of the child gets on board, and they're not going to do that unless they get the training and see it work and get the buy-in. And that's really key, right? Because if you are just saying to somebody, well, we're going to do this and it's going to work, it's not the same as when you see, okay, it did work. I said to somebody yesterday, I love the dad on the A Word because he's so my mindset that at one point, when they're explaining to him, okay, this is how we're going to institute this feeding issue with your individual child who loves to watch videos on a computer. And we're going to take a food that we're trying to introduce to your child and we're going to have him taste it. And then he's going to get to watch the video. And then when he stops eating, we're going to pause the video and say, take a bite. And as soon as you take a bite, we're going to turn the video back on. And the dad, when they're explaining this, goes, oh, come on. It can't be that simple. If it was that simple, we would have done it a long time ago. It's not going to work. I know my kid, it's not going to work. And which would be me. I'd be like, oh, come on. That's like that's so simple. If that was that easy, right? And then they do it and it works. And the dad is mad and he's like, I'm kind of mad that worked. I love that it worked, but I'm kind of mad. Like, if it worked and it was that easy, why didn't you mention this to me 5 years ago, right? I so appreciate that. It's real. It's how I would feel. The frustration of it about, okay, then why didn't the child come with this instruction manual? Why? But we all need that third eye, right? We just do, as much as possible, when it's possible, to get that third eye. So check out the A word. Take a look at how this family deals with it. It's going to be different than how your family deals with it, but I do love and appreciate that this family is finding a way for it sometimes to be with the dad, sometimes to be with the mom, and sometimes to be with the both of them. That's really what's optimal. Isn't always possible, but as much as we can do it. All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have the myth of the day. Stick with us. Today has partnered with Cox Communications to bring Inclusion Films to San Diego. Led by Joey Travolta, Inclusion Films teaches filmmaking to developmentally disabled children.
It's a practical film camp where we take them through the process of making a film. And each group, we split them into 3 groups, and they're each responsible for making a short film together as a group.
How many people like animation in this group?
This is a wonderful opportunity for children to build their self-confidence, to develop new friendships, and it's also an opportunity for their siblings to come and to enjoy the company of other peers in this really wonderful, fun setting.
Okay, so you know what time it is?
Cox Communications has years of supporting the community. We believe in giving back to the communities we serve, and military, youth, and education are our 3 pillars. And so this really matched up with everything that we're about and what we're trying to do to give back to the San Diego community. And so we were thrilled to meet up with ACT Today and Inclusion Films and to have this wonderful synergy. 3 organizations really trying to move towards a common cause.
All right, we're ready?
There you go, got it.
Okay, you'll be talking to me, okay? So tell me your name, say my name is. In the past, we've done The Junior Apprentice, which was a takeoff on The Apprentice, The Really, Really, Really Late Show, which is a takeoff on The Tonight Show. And this year, we're doing a combination of 60 Minutes and Entertainment Tonight called 30 Minutes Tonight.
Okay, good. So now you understand what an improv is. You guys get the idea what an improv is? To go with the flow of something, especially in the action.
My son Elijah, he's into movies and he's into music, and so this program might bring out his particular skills.
Amazing. You're like a professional animator.
Every single person here we've met has been so kind, loving, and caring. They've given Nicholas the opportunity to be himself and be around people who have the same passion and interest as he does.
What is it you learned with Coyne? What did you learn?
That filming is kind of tricky.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate. And when they collaborate, they come up with a product that everybody can see they're a part of something. They become a community, they become a family. When you make a film, you really become a family.
Are we having fun at film camp? Yeah! You know, we are close to Hollywood. Yes. And Hollywood is always looking for young talent like this.
Autism is an epidemic and is not going to get any better anytime soon. Families are struggling to pay the bills, to put food on their table, let alone provide services for their children. And ACT Today is a vehicle of support for these families by helping them get access to life supports that they couldn't otherwise have.
My experience in film camp has been great, and I just really love how all you guys decided to bring us together.
What I learned here, I learned to animate, how to operate the platform. I learned about the animation and filming and editing.
Making friends.
Making new friends and acting.
Meeting new friends. You can be anything you want to be.
What this meant for your family.
It's hard to put into words, to be honest with you. It's just been a godsend. I don't even know how to describe it. It's been amazing.
Attending the camp was something that my children never ever would have been able to do previously. It brought a level of confidence I've seen in their schoolwork, but I've seen in them socially, but I'd never seen before.
This premiere ties three things that are near and dear to me in my life. One, autism, because it touches directly in my family. Two, most of my friends here are military. Three, film. I love film. I love performing.
Well, first of all, it's a great cause that you've created here for all these kids. It's every time you come out, you feel like you're giving back, and you want to be able to support these kids.
Everything that goes into everyday life goes into filmmaking. So all the things that go into them that are all life skills. So I just think any program like this, any arts program, anything that can let these kids communicate, it's just important. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can.
The children in the military have special challenges. Every couple of years, their parents have to start over getting their programs back, and that is something that is daunting. Luckily, we have wonderful advocates working all the time in ACT Today, and I'm seeing differences, like more military members being really cognizant of the needs of special needs families.
And I just want to thank you for your service.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you for being such an amazing mom and all the work you do. And I want you to have a wonderful time tonight. Tonight's for you. Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time for the myth of the day, and it kind of goes hand in hand with everything we've been talking about this week. And the myth of the day is, well, and I want to be sure there's two sides to the myth of the day. One is one of the favorite things that I like to say here, that a year ago, 2 years ago by now, Holly Robinson Peete wrote a blog, and in it she said, here are the 8 things that I wish that everyone would know about autism. And number 1 was that no one can afford it. And I think that that's true, and I think that it's still true today. Now, then you would think then that the myth of the day would have nothing to do with the fact that everyone can afford to get their children help, right? Because nobody can afford it. And that's, again, it's absolutely 100% true. No one can afford it, because if you were going to spend and if you were going to do all the things that there are to do for autism, no one could afford it. But that doesn't mean that no one can afford ABA. And that there aren't ways of making it work when you can't afford ABA. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Because I certainly remember looking at it and thinking, oh no. And the level of oh no, I mean, there are words I can't say, right? Beyond which they're not appropriate in this sort of setting, but beyond which there are words that there are no words to convey how badly I felt in the moment that I thought being able to help my child was going to be contingent upon what I had in my bank account. We just were talking with Dr. Lisa Coyne earlier, and she said to me, you know, what what do you want to be remembered for? And I got all, and in that moment I was like, well, because I want to help people, but really, what supersedes that is that I want to have been a really good parent. And I know that a lot of you are out there feel that way too, that I'm going to get all emotional about it too. And that being a good parent means that I can provide my child the things that he deserves. And I'm never going to be able to give him everything that he deserves, right? So you get into this emotional, But then on top of that, if it feels like there's something that could help your child that you just can't do financially, we're talking it goes beyond, it transcends depression, right? And so I chose as a parent, like a lot of parents do, to say, I can't even look at that. I cannot even look at that. So I'm going to stay over here on the side of who has made this work and what did they do? To get into that mindset of, okay, if this is absolutely impossible, then, Chinese wall. I don't see what happens on the other side of the wall. I'm going to look over here because there are people in my neighborhood who have managed to make this work. I'm going to ask them how they did it. And then I'm going to walk right behind them and figure out how I'm going to make it work, because obviously I'm not them and I don't have what's in their bank account. How do I make this work? And I want you to look around and see that people do. It's not always pretty, and I will tell you that my husband and I frequently will sit there and say, how did we manage? How did we do it? And a lot of it was through a lot of grace from other people who were helpful. But we also, I will say that what we had going for us, and we didn't invent it, we got it from other people, was the idea that we were going to make it work. We were going to make it work. No matter what happened, we were going to find a way to make it work. And there were a lot of tears, man, because there were a lot of days that we thought, okay, this is the end of the road. I am out of ideas of how to make it work. And then something would happen. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me. Anyway, see, I get all emotional and then I sneeze. But getting into that mindset of how do we make it work? And we talk about a lot of different things here because it's going to be different for everybody. It absolutely is going to be different for everyone. But if you are 100% sure and you're going to live by the fact that you're not going to be able to afford autism, then that is what's going to happen. You won't be able to afford it, and that's a terrible place to be in, and I don't want you to be in that place. And I think we've all been in that place at least for a period of time, and we dip back into that place from time to time. But I want to remind you that there's work to be done and that there are ways around it. There are ways to get around the money thing. We've talked before about the fact that there are families who have somebody trained or train somebody, and there are fundraisers that you can do to make that happen, and then get volunteers and have the person that was trained train the volunteers. And I also want to add to you that great minds are finding ways to make that easier and more effective and quicker and less expensive. Where 10 years ago, maybe, doing it on the cheap, as they sometimes say, would have been something that was so, even on the cheap, would have been so far away that you couldn't have considered it. There are ways to do really good ABA on the cheap now if you're really willing. And that's the hard word, the willing part, right? But I just can't sit by and have people say it's not possible. It is. I see it. And it's becoming more and more possible for more and more people. And I hope that if you're one of the people who really feels like it's completely impossible, challenge me. Challenge me. This is like, the throwdown. We're throwing down the gauntlet. Challenge me and say, Shannon, okay, take me on. I want to know how to afford it. I can't figure out how to afford it. And, work with me on this and see if you can't know my circumstances and troubleshoot it and figure out what's the best possible thing. And if you can't move this dial at all, then shut up, right? You can say that to me. I want it. Bring it. Because I think we can do something. Right? Together we can figure out there's a grant somewhere, there's, something that you can apply for so you can get started. I do know that a lot of times I hear from parents, well, yeah, I can get a grant for $5,000 if I fill out all this paperwork, but $5,000 isn't going to be enough. Okay, but let's take that $5,000 and let's move the needle. Let's figure out how we use that $5,000 to train 1 or 2 people so that you can then train the volunteers. People have done it before you. It's a lot of work. Boy, let's not kid ourselves about that. It's a lot of work. It's so worth it. It's the best work you'll ever do. Honestly, you'll sleep different. Your stomach's going to feel different. And if what we want is to be the best possible parents, take the leap with me. Let's figure it out. Don't be alone. Nobody has to be alone. Let's take the leap. Challenge me. Come on. I probably can't do, be challenged by more than 2 people, so it's first come, first serve. Let's make an example of what you can do. You and I together. Bring me a tough case. And let's put this myth to bed that we're not able to, we have power. We have power. We are not powerless. And we can help our kids. All right. We are going to take a break, and we're going to come back and look at some of your answers to the question of the day, which go hand in hand with some of the things that we've talked about. Stick with us. What do you think about the prevalence of autism, the rising number of prevalence, and what are your thoughts on what this world is going to be like with so many individuals on the autism spectrum?
I think a lot of the increase is just increased detection on the milder spectrum, but I think there is some severe autism that's increased. Older parents having children would be one factor. Lack of vitamins, like the B vitamins prior to pregnancy, chemical insults, taking prescription drugs in the first trimester. There's a whole lot of little insults like this that can interact with susceptible genetics. I work in a technical field, and there's mild autism and Asperger's and dyslexics all over it. One of the best millwrights in the feedlot industry is severe dyslexic. He's one of the best millwrights that there is, and that builds complicated feed mills. And the thing that worries me is they've taken so many of the hands-on classes out of the school: cooking, sewing, woodworking, metalworking, auto shop. There's a lot of kids that are kind of different. They make great mechanics, and we have a shortage of mechanics right now. We have a shortage of engineers. I'm getting concerned that there's some smart kids that are kind of different, kind of getting a handicap label. Now, where the diagnosis really makes a difference is later on in life with their relationships. And the wife is wondering why the husband is not very demonstrative and, not very lovey-dovey and emotional. And this is where getting a diagnosis can really help their marriage, because then the wife understands. See, that's where that kind of, when it comes to relationships, that's where the diagnosis can really, really make a difference. I think one of the problems today is sort of a more social society today. The kid that was a little bit not too social before, he'd be out there in the auto mechanic shop getting along great with the shop teacher, and they got rid of that kind of stuff. You see, I'm in a weird situation where I walk back and forth between the autism world and the sort of metalworking and cattle working kind of world. And, there's farmers that I know that are on the spectrum, and they're doing great in farming.
So maybe it's not that these kids actually do have a diagnosis then, but maybe the prevalence was there before?
Well, I think on the mild end, I think the prevalence is probably there. But I think there's severe autism that has increased. There's way too much sugar in the diet. We also have an omega-3 deficient diet in this country. We're not getting enough omega-3s. I think let's go back to the alternative things: fish oil supplements, some of the B vitamins, and lots of exercise. Kids are eating way too much sugar, and kids are not just getting enough activity. Mother used to say to me, go outside and run the energy out of you. Well, and kids aren't doing that today, so that makes the ADHD worse.
Oh, I just said I'm so frustrated because I had the Facebook up and then it totally went away. And now is it back? Oh, it's just doing all kinds of weird things on my computer for me. Love that. Frustrated. Okay. Well, I'm gonna close out of this and see if I can get it to come back up. But we were answering the question of the day, and here it comes. It's coming. We were answering the question of the day and talking about, here we go, what age your child started ABA therapy. And I just was doing, I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I'm trying to get it to come up. The reason why I wanted to know this is because so much of the mail that we've been getting from people, there are those of you who have already started ABA and who tune into the show and you say wonderful things about it, some of which we're going to list here in just a second. But there are those of you who you've got some anger because your child didn't start it earlier. I hear you. I feel you. I understand as much as I can, right? Because I was really lucky. Let's not kid ourselves. My child started just after his 3rd birthday. And I know how much I torture myself over the 6 months in which I, A, didn't know, and B, was refusing it because I'd heard the wrong things about it. And I know what I torture myself over those 6 months, so I can just imagine for those of you who had multiple years that you didn't hear about it or were told the wrong thing or you haven't been able to find the funding. I honestly can't imagine. But in any case, I want you to see that it's never too late, and I wanted you to hear some of the things that people have to say about when their children started. So the first one, a mom wrote in and said, my son was 5 years old. He will be 7 soon, and ABA has been a blessing, with 3 exclamation points. Somebody else who said 3 years old exactly, but I wish I had known about it sooner. It's a song that we all sing no matter what age. Nobody talked about it until then, and I should have started him at age 2. It certainly would have made a faster recovery. ABA is nothing short of miraculous. Somebody else said, still waiting, no insurance. We're going to talk more about this today. Somebody else said, who can afford it? This exact thing that we were talking about, because honestly, no one can, but there are ways around it. And I'm gonna message that person privately. Someone else who started at 4. Another person who says, my son has yet to start ABA. It supposedly is covered by insurance, but I still keep getting told that it isn't. And they write, depressing. Absolutely, but we keep up the fight. More people are getting it. More people will get it. Sign the petition so more will get it. I don't know what I've done with my microphone here. It's amazing. Any of you can even hear me because I have twisted my microphone into a pretzel at this point. That's why this is a live show, so that we can talk about these things as they happen. Okay. Somebody else details that daily autism supports can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 a year for anywhere from 2 to 10 years if you're paying directly out of pocket. And that can be very true. It could be much more than that in actuality. I remember getting the first couple of years that my son had ABA therapy. The first year he had 40 hours a week, and then we went down to like 35 for the second year. And it was when we were in our 3rd year that they asked that each one of the regional centers who were paying for the therapies send a bill that you did not have to pay, but just to let you know how much money you had spent, how much the money, the state's money you had spent had been spent on your child, right? And I have them. I think at some point I'll probably do something, gold leaf them and hang them on the wall. And I try to thank the state of California every year. And when I write my check for my state taxes, I do so with great joy and kiss it and send it off to them. But I want to say that the first year it was over $150,000. And it wasn't much less than that the second year, obviously. So, yeah, it can be very, very expensive. Worth it? Yes, absolutely worth it. And the state of California will tell you that it was worth it because my child will be a productive member of society, and when he's an adult, will not have to have further services, and it's going to save them $2.5 million easily a year or across a lifetime. I'm not sure which that number is that they came out with, but a lot of money. It'll save them a lot of money. Let's say that. I don't want to misquote. Somebody else says, in terms of what age did your child start? Can't afford it. Insurance won't cover it. And we have about 10 more years on the waiver waiting list for services. By then, we will be looking into adult services. Things are changing. I don't know which state you're in. And I said during the last segment, challenge me, write in and say, here's what we have. Here's where we live. How do I start ABA services? And make it my job to figure out what kind of grants will get you started. Seriously, I can do that for 1 or 2 people. and then we'll make an example of this is how, there are ways, or, if there's absolutely no way, and then I will sit here on the show and say, nope, I couldn't come up with anything. All the people I know, I couldn't come up with anything to help this person get started. But challenge me. Do it. I love a good challenge, and especially about things like this. It is overwhelming, and if you could use a hand, I'd love to be helping. Another person who says, answering the question, how old was your child when they started ABA? She was approved at a little over 3, and she is almost 4, but we haven't started it yet, as we have moved from Southern California to Northern California, but insurance is covering it, and we received a call about it yesterday, so it should be starting soon. That ramp-up time, it can be so frustrating. I want to encourage you to use skills while you're in the gap between when you know that you need services and when you can get them started. It's a great way to start, really. And use the trainings, the e-learnings that are available in the Institute for Behavioral Training. Somebody else who says 5 years old for the twins, but we wished we had started much earlier, all out of pocket. Amazing. Someone else says, never. It's bloody like gold dust in the UK. Don't even know much about it. Stick with us. We'll tell you more about it. And I know in different countries it's really difficult. Somebody else says, I started 3 years ago. Just follow one by one. Another person said, my son was 3.5. I drove 74.6 miles one way 3 times a week. Insurance didn't cover a dime of it, and at that time, our family income was barely $55,000. But we did it, and it was worth everything in all caps, everything it took to make it happen. I hear stories like that, and I'm amazed, because it does take a mindset of what do we have to do to make it work? And I know right now you might be thinking, I just don't see it. That's okay. Bring me and let's find the way. Another person says that they agree. This is that they agree with the person who in the UK, and they said it makes me feel really bad that I can't afford to pay for ABA, which if it does work so well should really be available to all on the National Health Service. And, I agree. And here in the United States, we have said this often, if this works, and we know that it works, and it's not an if anymore, it's more than proven that this works for all of our kids, then it needs to be covered by insurance or by the National Health. It needs to be covered. This is a big job that we all have the responsibility to do. Somebody else says, my kiddo was 3, almost 4 when we started. And somebody else said 8, just started, because early intervention, early means now. I want to go to one of our other sites here. And I want to encourage you, while I'm going, to visit our Facebook page. And while you're there, give us a like. You know what happens when you like our Facebook page? I don't get all the ways that Facebook works, but when you like our page, we reach more people. There are more parents who get an opportunity to know about the kinds of things that we talk here. So we do appreciate it when you guys help us out and give us a like. Somebody says, answering the question, how old your child was when they started ABA, 3 years old. Somebody else says 2, and I believe 17 or 18 months. I have 2 daughters with autism. Somebody else says 4. Someone says 2 years, 5 months in California, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week in home, and an hour at school 5 days a week. He is 13 now. It wasn't until he was 10 and received verbal behavior ABA that he began to make progress. Crucial that parents participate and schools follow through. Not happening, in my opinion, in 80% of the population. I would agree. Somebody says at 2.5 that they ran a full-time program for 10 years. And someone else says that they so need ABA for their 6-year-old. We need tools to help him express his feelings. He hits and throws things. If he's sad because he can't put his feelings into word, makes it tough, and they have a sad face there. Tomorrow is funding day, and we'll talk more about funding tomorrow and how some of the different ways that we make this happen. But I will tell you, there are grants. I used to think that there weren't, and now I know for a fact that there are. And you don't find them by putting them into Google and writing autism grants. It just doesn't work that way, right? You kind of need to know which question to ask first, but I always like to start with Act Today. I hope that if you're somebody who hasn't been able to start anything, go to Act Today today. Take a look at the kinds of things that they funded and ask yourself, where would I want to start? We'll talk more about that tomorrow and in the days to come. But and then we'll talk about more funding sources tomorrow. But a lot of times when you get a funding source, it's not for a grant, it's not going to cover full ABA, and people stop there and say, well, then I'm not going to be able to do it. You don't need a full grant to cover all the ABA to get started. You just need a very little bit of money to get started. And again, the willing. When there's a will, there's a way, right? Our grandmothers were right when we said that. All right. We are going to take a break and come back and finish out the show with our school tip. But don't forget, tomorrow we'll be talking about funding. And then on Monday, we've got a really exciting show for you. A bunch of things that are going to be happening on Monday. We're going to be unveiling something really exciting on Monday. Temple Grandin is going to be with us on Monday morning, where she won't be live on the show. She's going to be with me on the phone earlier in the morning answering your questions, but then we're going to show it same day, so it's not a big wait time. So be writing in on our Facebook and tell us what questions you'd like to ask Temple Grandin tomorrow. We'll be very excited to have her on the phone for that. And then also on Monday, Merrick Williams is going to be here, and Merrick Williams is setting out to go across the country on a tour to show skills to schools and parents, and he's got some exciting stuff to share with us as well that all goes hand in hand with when you don't have the money in your bank account to afford ABA, there are many different ways, and skills is one of them. So we'll be talking about that as well on Monday. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back with our school tips, so stick with us. There's been another new study about optimal outcomes, and I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on recovery? Do you think it's possible? Do you believe in recovery from autism?
On recovery, you learn how to adapt. I mean, I've had a lot of experimental brain scans done, and I have found things that are definitely abnormal. I have an enlarged left ventricle that's definitely abnormal. That's not going to go away. That scan was done less than 5 years ago. But you work with someone and they adapt. You're not going to make me an algebra specialist. That's just not going to happen. But things like getting better at public speaking, that is something that I gradually learned. What I'm seeing today, especially with some of the kids on the mild end of the spectrum, I'm seeing teenagers that are much milder than me that haven't learned things like how to go up to the counter at McDonald's and order food all by themselves, how to go on the bus, how to shop, how to go in the store and shop, how to do a checkbook, basic things like that. Because what drives me crazy is when I go back to the cattle world and I see a guy in the maintenance shop that's running the whole maintenance shop at a big plant, and he's as Asperger's as he can be, and he's running a whole maintenance shop. And then I see Junior that's addicted to video games, and you can't get his duff off his chair and get him doing things. Now, when I was in high school, I did a lot of thinking about this. I got kicked out of a large girls' school for throwing a book, and I went to a special boarding school up on a farm, and I was allowed to work with the farm animals. And they let me goof off and not study. But I got to thinking, there's one thing they did not let me do. I goofed off and I didn't study, but I had to physically go to class. When I didn't want to go to the Friday night movie, they made me the projectionist. One thing they were not going to let me do is sit in my room, become a recluse in my room. They were not going to allow that.
I want to know why you threw the book. Why did you throw it?
Oh, I threw a book at a girl because she called me a retard.
Oh, good reason.
Oh, no,
to throw
she
it
teased me. And I had some problems getting in fights when kids teased me. But it was always brought about by someone picking on me. And the principal had me kicked out of school, out of a large girls' school for doing that.
And what'd your mom say?
Well, she was not very happy about the whole thing because when the principal called, I answered the phone and he said I was incorrigible and I was kicked out of school. Mother was really angry that he just said that right directly to me, which was definitely not very appropriate.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So we have always a school tip for you. And sometimes we talk about how to help a child with just the academic portion of school, but we also talk about how to make the school environment something that's more positive and reinforcing for our children and for the individuals who are working with our children. And one of the tips that we've shared recently is taking your IEP and making sure that it's in really user-friendly language and putting it in either laminating it or putting it in a sheet protector and giving it to everybody who's involved with your child. Well, that's great, right? I think of that as sort of antecedent, right? We want to do all the things that we are establishing operation, actually. It's something that we want to do to set ourselves up for success. But when we talk about using ABA with our kids, we talk about how there's an antecedent, something that happens before, and then there's the behavior, and then there's a consequence for it. And when we see behaviors that we want to see more of, one of the ways that we do that is by giving a reinforcer for it. So it's easy to forget that this works for everybody in our lives, right? But if we can remind ourselves and say, okay, wait a second. So how do I make it more reinforcing for the people who interact with my child to actually carry out the details of the IEP and the BIP, the behavior intervention plan, so that when your child engages in a behavior that it's not conducive towards learning or towards being safe or allowing others to learn, there should be a behavior intervention plan and everyone should be following the plan, right? We can't always say that that necessarily happens, but how can you make that more reinforcing? How can you make it more reinforcing for the teacher to actually have your child in the classroom? And I think it's a really good thing to be thinking about this time of year because we're winding towards the end of the school year and you're looking at where your child's going to be placed next year. Very soon we'll be having open houses where parents get to go in and see what the kids have been working on all year long. I always say what a great thing to do. Go and appreciate your teacher on that day, but then go to the next grade of the placement that they might be putting your child in and shop. And start then with finding something that's reinforcing a reason why people would want to have your child in their classroom. Not just be willing, but actually want your child to be in the classroom. What do you have to bring to the table? What does your child have to bring to the table that's going to be beneficial and make having your kid in the classroom a plus? Because I want people to be excited to have my child there, not just go, okay. I can remember a couple of years ago shopping on that night, on the back to school night, and talking to two different teachers and saying, okay, I'm shopping, and, have heard great things about you and want to know, how do you feel about it? We come with some baggage. Some different interesting things, and how do you feel about that? And I remember both teachers being very politically correct and saying, "Oh, well, we're our classroom is open and we're always willing." And but there was a third teacher who was like, "I can't even tell you how much I want to work with you because I'm curious about this, this, and this, and I know that you guys work with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and I've heard about them, and I'm interested in having their input of how I can do things that are better for clearly who's the winner of this, whose class did he end up in the next year, and part of it too, and I'm going to be honest about this, is that early on a parent had said to me, I think it was Moira Giammatteo, who we've had on the show before, had said, make sure that you do something for the class, whatever it is. That one parent does a pizza party every year, that they pay for it, and it's the thank you to the teacher in the class for being there and showing up and being positive and being, we want to give reinforcement, right? So that was what they did. Now, I, at the time, because one of the things that I did when my son was in therapy to make ends meet, because I had to be there, was that I was putting together little video pieces for people for a birthday party or for their kid's birthday party or adult's 50th birthday or an anniversary or a wedding show afterwards, putting together a slideshow with with music that would commemorate something. And it was just one of the things that I did to try to make ends meet. And so I said that I would document the year. And I went around and took pictures of kids, and at the holiday time, before they went to holiday break, and then at the end of the year, I would give the disc to the teacher would play it and make sure that all the kids got a disc. Now, it probably took me a total of 10 hours across the year to put it together, which is no small thing, right? And it took me probably $20 in DVDs to burn all of them. So we're talking about 10 hours and $20 to $30, and kids wanted to be in my child's class, and parents wanted my child to be in their class and were welcoming of it, and teachers who were into that kind of thing were drawn to and wanted to know more about us. Not necessarily wanted to take us, but were drawn to and wanted to. And that was something that we brought to the table. You might have something that's completely different. Like maybe you or your spouse works at a place that does great field trips that are for free. It's a plus. It's a big, big deal. I have a friend whose husband is a fireman, and every year he comes to the class and does a whole thing on fire safety, and he'll go to other classes too. How many people do you think line up to make sure that that child is in their classroom and that they have access to that? It just adds to the environment. So ask yourself, what do you have? And it might be something that you know somebody else, or it might be something, think outside the box. What could you do to appreciate it? It doesn't have to be you spending money. It really doesn't. Sometimes it's your time. If you're a parent who goes in and, earlier this year, I went in and did an arts and crafts project with my son's class, and the teacher said, "Oh my goodness, this is so lovely because this is not where my talents lie and the kids need this. This is a wonderful thing." So asking the teacher, what kinds of things can I do? What kinds of things can I bring into the classroom to make your job easier? Ask other teachers and say, what would be helpful to that teacher? I know sometimes it seems like, well, we're bribing people. We all like to feel appreciated, and we all like when somebody jumps in and helps, right? I don't really think of that as bribery. And I don't know about you, but I love to be surrounded by people. We had Susan Campbell Cross in yesterday, and we love her. We love her energy, and I love when she comes in and talks with us about things that we can do. And she brought Nancy and I CDs that she burned of just her playlist that she likes to listen to, and she said, what was it? It was less than $1, and yet I just thought, I already loved her, but it's so considerate. And I just think, wow, what a great person. I just want to spend more time with her, not because she gave me a gift, because she was thoughtful and she has good energy. So, something that we do because if it helps for our child to be more successful, why wouldn't we? I think that that's the key to all of it. We want to do whatever we can. I keep going back to what Dr. Coyne asked me today about, so what's the thing more than anything else you want to be remembered for? I want to be a good parent. I want to be a good parent. And aligning ourselves with that, and sometimes that means being nice to the people who are being nice to our kids. That's not something that we can't put on our list of things to do, right? Okay. All right. We are right here at the end of the show. I was going to go to a break, but there really isn't enough time to go. So let's recap some of the things that are going to be going on tomorrow and next week. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to try to work it out to have the two other members of the team that Dr. Lisa Coyne has been working with all this week on that ACT acceptance commitment therapy that is just so amazing that I can't wait to hear more and more about. And she has two other people who are working with her, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to have them here in the studio with us. We also have a special guest that's going to be joining, talking about an early intervention program I believe it's called Mighty Oak. So that will be tomorrow as well, and some more exciting things that we have in the mix for you, not the least of which is debuting a video that we had the opportunity to shoot this week, which borders on a little bit on the silly, but it's okay, because we're promoting a new initiative that we're going to unveil on Monday. Very, very exciting. Also on Monday, we will be talking with Temple Grandin. Again, we won't be having her live on the show. She's committed during the time that the show is on the air, but we'll be talking with her for a full half hour before the show. We'll be recording that to play during the show on Monday. So if you have a question for Temple Grandin and you're really burning question for Temple Grandin, and you really want to hear the answer fairly immediately on Monday, make sure that you're writing into our Facebook or emailing us. In fact, Emily here is going to start to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. And I really want to encourage you. Temple's going to be joining us on a semi-regular basis, and so if your question wasn't answered before, feel free to ask it again. We've kept all the questions that you asked before. It may be that we just haven't gotten to the edited portion of where we answered the question, but don't give up, because we will get your question answered one way or the other eventually. And Temple has said that she just loved the questions that you guys sent in. And in fact, it's why she wants to do it again, because they're questions directly from parents. And I know that that's a big part of her journey, is that she wants to be helpful. And that's a great thing. So feel free to send those questions in. As I mentioned, tomorrow we are going to be talking about funding. We always talk about it on Friday, right? On Mondays we talk about stress. On Fridays we talk about funding. And then on Monday again, we will be joined by Merrick Williams, who is setting out on his tour around the country talking about skills. And I think that's going to be really exciting, because he's got some new stuff that I think that will really grab your attention. I want to close the show by saying how grateful and privileged I feel to spend this time with you. And I know that some of the things that we talk about here are hard. I really do. I want you to know that I get that, some of it firsthand and some of it because I just can imagine how hard it is for you. But I don't want you to give up. I really don't. I'm here with you, and so many other people are here with you, and there are so many different things that are available, more and more that are available. I'm not going to say that it's easy, because that would be a lie. But there are things that you can do in small ways and in big ways, and there's help that is available to you. So I hope you'll take me up on my challenge and let me know what's going on with you and how I can be of help. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.